Hi everybody, Dennis here from Denny Bob's RC. Hey, I am working on making some 14th scale jersey barriers using the DPS or DP scale or DPS, the company is, um, using their stainless steel metal forms to build them. And I'll kind of go through the process. It's going to be kind of long and tedious. It's going to be somewhat boring, but you know what? I'm doing this to maybe help somebody out down the road. Um, Here we go. Now I have tried multiple things to make this work. The hardest part with these metal forms has been getting a release agent. Um, I did buy a form release agent to use. That failed. I've even gone to the point of greasing the using wheel bearing grease to grease the forms. The unfortunate thing is that leaves a real sticky, greasy residue on the blocks, which no big deal. Later on, you can take it and wash off. This form has been used multiple times so far. I'm just trying to get any excess residue or concrete mix off of the forms before and every once in a while there's a piece of concrete in the corner that you got to get out. These have been used many times so far, and so far it's worked pretty good. But my release agent that I'm using, it's called spray grease. It's like a lithium base. I just kind of spray it on. Then I got a foam brush, and then I just try to put a light coating on the form. Now these forms are all bolted together, so it is somewhat what you want to call time consuming, but I try to get some in the corners so that it releases when I go to break the forms apart. Now sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So far this has worked about 99% of the time. I think I've only had one block that got ruined that I was working on last night. And just kind of, the thing is with using the brush, these brush lines will be in the finished block, just light brush lines. But that's why I'm using the foam brush. It doesn't leave as much of a line in the casting. And I think this is a white lithium spray grease is what it is, and it seems to be working. This happens to be an AGCO product. I work for an AGCO dealer, and that's what I've been using. It does leave a little light white residue on the blocks, but it's real easy to wipe off and clean up. And I try to make sure I coat all the surfaces and then come back and just kind of make sure I level it off. Leave as minimal amount of brush strokes as I can. I had some different people tell me some different things. You know, diluted castor oil, which that might work in some of the silicone forms, but not so much for these steel forms. The problem with these steel forms is there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 screws on that face. I don't put them all in. I don't need them. Once this form is held together, I think I actually only put 5 in. But they're 3mm hardware. And I do like every other basically on the bottom. And because all these screws, you have to, what do you want to say? Reuse and reuse and reuse. And I've been putting a little grease on the threads to help not strip out the screws, you know, because you keep going screws into a dry hole. Eventually, they probably will strip out. Worst comes to worst, I got to put a nut on the backside. Big deal. I've even thought about taking these forms, putting the bolts in from the other side, and using them kind of as locating pins, and then use a vise to clean off any of the old, and then hold it together until it starts to get hardened, and then take it out of the vise, set it, and it would be a lot quicker. I don't know. I got time to kill. I take and coat these. These are actually form blocks to do the to use pallet forks to move these. I gotta loosen that screw up just slightly. All right. And then there's these are all 3mm hardware, and then there's 2mm hardware that hold these in. And I've only been taking and putting in 2 of these bolts out of the 4 to just basically to save some time. They're not really needed, and it seems to be holding it together just fine. And then before I go tightening everything up, I'll get these started, and then I put them kind of crisscross from each other. I'm cheating a little bit, if you want to be honest about it. Trying to save myself a little bit of time taking the blocks, taking these apart every time. Nice thing about the silicone molds, it gets hard and you can, but I don't know how anybody with the silicone molds is actually getting the pallet grooves in there unless they've got some insert that they can take in and out. But I've never had much luck doing silicone molds, so I have chosen to go with these stainless steel molds. I bought 4 of these molds from DPS. I think they were like $69 a mold, which the only reason I bought 4 is I could do more a little bit quicker. Once I got the system figured out, then it's been working fine. I figure usually, in an hour's time, it'll take me, I might get 4 molds done in an hour's time. I'm just kind of wiping that grease on this surface, that way any of the residual that overfills on the form doesn't stick to the form. But there, it's assembled. And the next step, we'll go into mixing and pouring. Well, hopefully I've got the camera somewhat, you don't have to look at me, I'm just trying to get this started. I have a measuring cup here somewhere. Now, all I'm doing is mixing it in like a red Solo cup. They're disposable, and you could reuse them if you can get it thin enough. You can crack it out and dump it out, but I just mix enough to do mine. I can only do 1 mold in one of these at a time. So we'll now this stuff here that I am pouring in is actually Quickcrete that I have sifted the large sand granules out of, and I usually put 2 cups of that in there. Gives it a little more of a base. Besides, that was cheaper than what this Rock-Tite anchoring and patching mix is. It's kind of, I want to say, what are these? Probably $20 or $25 for this 10-pound bucket. And I'll mix that like so much, and it's kind of a, I don't know, little of this, a little of that. I'll put some water in. We'll get that mixed up. I just got a wooden stick that I've been stirring it with. Seems to be working fine. I'm going to get this mixed up a little bit. I could just use 100% the Rock-Tite mix, which it is super strong and dries very quickly. But I'm trying to use up some of my other mixed stuff that I do have, and then that saves me a little bit of time and money, or a little bit of money on this stuff here. But I've got a certain line that I fill these up to that I know will be enough to fill a form. There's a line in the cup that I try and get it filled up to, and I like to get it about the consistency, maybe a little bit thicker than soft serve ice cream, to be honest with you. Then it pours really good, and you can get the air bubbles worked out of it in the form. Yeah, it's not exciting video, guys, but right now I got there's 32 barriers sitting there that have been made so far with these forms. Early on, I ruined a lot of them trying to get them out of the forms, and none of those, and some of my very first ones were not perfect by any means. Trying to think if it ends up being about 8 scoops of this, I think, almost to be enough to fill one of those forms. And I make a little bit of a mess, and that's why I've got I'm not measuring out the water, just due to the fact that I've done this enough times. I kind of know where I want to be and what I need to be for consistency. Yeah, you know, I do have an RC Ready Mix truck that I could use, but I haven't found a guy small enough to go in there and chip out the drum yet. So I'm not going to go mixing real concrete in my Ready Mix truck. Dry only in that thing. Now, I did get this just a little bit thin, I think. Well, we'll go with another half a cup of that. That way I make sure I got plenty to do. And if I got a little residual, I can mix it in with if I got a little left over, if I'm quick about it, then I can mix that into the next batch for the next form. The only time I get any little bit left over, usually got a couple tablespoons of stuff left over in the end. But yeah, it takes time to do these. Okay, I think we are good to go. Let the stick off, keep that from building up on there. And we'll get, let's slide this over out of the way, and we can do this right here. Take the form. I don't know if I'm getting that on the camera or not. We'll slide her down here. Now what I like to do, get her started in there. And then just kind of work it down into the form and get the air bubbles somewhat worked out of it. You're never going to get them all out, but at least get some majority of them. I see some guys do them and there's air bubbles all over on the sides. And I'll get her poured in there. Okay. Now this will set up in about 15 minutes is all it takes, and it'll be rock hard. I'm gonna grab myself a little trowel stick, basically a popsicle stick. I'm going to set this down on a couple of paper towels so it doesn't stick to the top of the because I'm going to excrete some of that off of there and work some more air bubbles out. And I'm sure I didn't quite get it held. Now I'm going to put a little bit more in. Get her pretty well leveled out. But I did put some of that release agent or grease on that surface, so that cleans up real good, whatever I get on there. This will get some of the air bubbles worked out of the system. And get it kind of leveled off. And sometimes I'll go in there and kind of work some of the air bubbles out. Yeah, it's a little bit creamy, but you'll be surprised. To be honest with you, that stuff gets hard as a rock. And I don't think I've ever mixed two batches exactly the same. All right. I go through a lot of blue shop towels. And another thing I have done in the past here too, get a little hammer and just kind of tap the sides of the forms. Try and get as much air bubbles out of it as I can, and there's still some kind of showing up at the top, but all right, we'll let that dry. It'll take, like I say, probably 15-20 minutes, and in the meantime, I'm going to mix up 3 more batches and get them all in my other forms. Okay, actually I think this might have been sitting for maybe 5 minutes at most, and some of the things that I do, and you probably wouldn't have to, I do kind of scribe along here. I wish I could get this, get a trowel and a nice edge around here, but I just got a little scribe. And that way it doesn't stick to this kind of when I take it apart, to avoid a broken edge. It's just an O-ring pick that I'm using, and it kind of puts a little edge on it. Not something you would probably have to do. It might be fine without it. But this form right now is actually kind of hot, because as that concrete cures, it does put off heat. And hopefully I don't stick myself in the finger with this. See if I can get that right there. Like I say, this is probably something you don't have to do. You could probably straighten up a little bit. But this is something I've been doing. It's just part of my process. It works for me. Don't mean it has to work for you. kind of thing. I'm going to get my glasses off because stupid bifocals are screwing me all up. Now I'm just going to taper that a little bit. Alright. How's it turn out? Looks pretty good. I'll tell you what, by the time I get done by the end of the night, I am dusty and dirty from working on this stuff. Alright, we'll take the 2mm screws out for the pallet fork holes. And sometimes I get a little residual spillover when I'm screeting the top of this off. And I try to get some of that off of here before it gets too, you know, kind of try and keep the form somewhat clean. Alright. Like I say, this is still somewhat hot, and hopefully this one comes apart fairly easy. If not, I got 3 more and we'll do the video again. Alright, now, get that just slightly underneath there. Pull that off. And that makes a nice groove for pallet forks, for if you got a forklift or not. All depends. Then I got to take my 3mm hardware out. This all takes time. If I had the ability to live stream out here in the country, which I could if I spent some money to upgrade my internet and all that, but I might be able to do, you know, do something like this alive, but that's all right. We're fine doing it this way. I'm fine doing it this way. Gives me a chance to edit anything out I don't want somebody to hear. All right. Yeah, and that residual stuff, since I put a little coating of that on there, that concrete mix pretty much just comes off with my fingernail. Now, I'm using just a razor blade to get in here to get this started to break apart. And I break that apart. And you gotta be careful. I don't want to break my blade off. Like that. That broke apart just slightly. I was using a hammer and a chisel, and I'm like, and that's how bad it was trying to do it with the other stuff, trying to get these apart. Damn near had to put a hammer, put a chisel in there. And we'll take a little screwdriver. Try and get it worked out so that, and work it evenly, because if you get too far ahead on one side, you can chip and crack the sides of the blocks if you're not careful. Come out pretty good. That one came off pretty good. Yeah, and you can see kind of some of the white grease kind of on there, but that stuff actually wipes off pretty easy. But you can slightly see some of the brush strokes in here. You see a little casting flash that can be easily sanded off if you need to be. But But what I'm planning on doing with these blocks, I will, when I get a bunch of them done, I'm going to take them and probably, I won't run them to the dishwasher. I won't do that. But take a bucket of hot soapy water and just kind of rinse and get a lot of this the grease off of them. But yeah, there, one done. But you can lightly see if I didn't quite get the. But to be honest with you, if you want them smooth, you can get yourself a piece of wet sandpaper and go and wet sand them, and you can get them nice and smooth if you want. But for me, that is good enough. So now got three more forms to get undone, and then I start this process all over again. So well, hopefully some of you found this somewhat informational and informative, or educational, informative, whatever. So I brought you along for the ride, and I hope you kind of enjoyed it. Not too sure how many of you will make it to the very end, but there we go. Yeah, I mean, I think that turned out pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it, and it didn't stick to the form real bad. There are some like little imperfections that sometimes the form will catch it, and not much you could do. Or I didn't get release agent right in that exact spot, or get that grease in there. But I'm pretty happy with how this one turned out. I've got some that look way worse than this, and I'm happy with them even. So anyway, there you go. Thanks for coming along for the ride, and catch you guys later. Go out and have fun with RCs.